Okay, here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I'd like to, on behalf of the team that put this together, welcome us. This is not the official welcome, but as we are getting started, it's good to say welcome. And primarily to also quickly identify, the speakers that we have in the house. For this evening, myself, Jerry Adeshewo of the Aroja Royal Theatre, will be co-moderating this session with our brother and friend, Owoicho Omachi. Of course, to also let you know very quickly that we have in the house already our speakers. And this whole session is all about, it got started some few weeks ago when we had Roshan, who is one of the special assistants to the Honorable Minister of Culture, Art, Culture, and Creative Economy, attended one of our events, and we got talking. We, raised some issues, and he promised that, oh, these are things we could talk about. There are some wonderful things going on, and we quickly said, okay, well, information is king. If we don't know, there is no how we can act, and so that gave birth to what we're about doing here today. So permit me very quickly to recognize the person of Mr. With which we have worked, very, very closely to put this together. Mr. Imal Silva is for Treasures for Life AGH, and he is waving, at us right there. Of course, in terms of our speakers, we have with us in the house already 3 out of 4. We have Baba Agba, the Special Assistant to the President on Creativity, who is also to the Honorable Minister of Art, Culture, and Creative Economy on film and music. He will be talking to us very shortly. We have already on in the house Modibo as Zubair, Special Assistant Advisor to the President on Entertainment, who is also a Special Assistant to the Honorable Minister of Art, Culture, and Creative Economy on job creation and economic expansion. And of course, already you can imagine how relevant this would be to have Modibo speak to us today, because it's important that we continue to create employment, and the creative sector, the creative industry is one of very major places that can make that happen. Of course, also we have in the house, like I mentioned earlier on, Roshan Nanayakara, who is the Special Advisor to the Honorable Minister on M&E and Heritage. M&E and Heritage. And of course, Roshan, Mr. Imal Silva, our own professor that refused to be to be called so. And of course, I said we have worked very closely to have this happen. And I will simply leave it just at that, because we know we have had a long day and we want to go just straight to business. And so it will be my pleasure to bring on Mr. Imal Silva to officially welcome us to this session, which is, of course, as we speak, being live streamed on YouTube. So tell us why we are here. Mr. Imal.
Thank you so much, sir. Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We truly appreciate you for making time out to come today. We want to especially thank the officials from government for taking time off your busy schedules to also engage with the larger community. This is a very big opportunity for us to be able to build and the bridges and the relationships and the bond that is necessary, so that the efforts of the government will be better known by the constituents, and then the constituents can also engage and understand what it takes to be able to take advantage of what the government is doing. So this public engagement is actually as a result of collaboration again between our company Treasures for Life, Aroja Royal Theatre, from Mr. Jerry, and most importantly, the Federal Ministry of Arts, Culture, and Creative Economy. So it is born out of collaboration, and the essence of our coming together is to hope that we can continue to build a stronger and stronger collaboration between the various stakeholders so that the efforts the government is making can be felt deeper and further into the public. I don't want to take much of your time. Thank you once again. I give it back to you, Mr. Jerry, to please continue with the proceedings. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. That's a quick one, and that is business-like. Thank you so very much. We're going to straight to the first business of the night. Like I said, the intention is not to waste anybody's time, but to ensure that we pass on this information. And so the very first take, for this evening is going to be the session by, sorry, just a minute. Yes, it's going to be the very first session is not here, to say. So we go to the second one, and that second session that becomes the first one is by Modibo as Zubair, which is going to be talking to us in the next 15 minutes, thereabout, about one of the major initiatives of the Federal Ministry of Arts, Culture, and Creative Economy and its partners. So these initiatives are not just of the ministry, they're also working. So in the next 15 minutes, please let us listen, let us make our notes, and when we return from there, either myself or Mr. Ocho Omachi will be on your face again to analyze and to ask further questions. Or you can also ask your own question by then. Mr. Modibo Azber, you have the mic, please.
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I want to just say a huge thank you to the organizers for proposing and convening such a really important event. And I'm really looking forward to being able to articulate briefly and give a bit of an outline of some of the work that we are doing with a specific sort of look on the sort of job creation and economic expansion aspects of those. Now, I think first and foremost about when it comes to IDICE, I think it's actually useful to sort of simplify and explain some of the confusion that there's been around IDICE. IDICE is one of those things where there's been a lot of talk about it for quite some time. There's been huge figures that have been sort of thrown out around about what they're trying to do, what IDICE is. And so I'm hoping to provide a little bit of nuance and also to provide clarity. And so case in point, the first being that IDICE is unfortunately not actually a program under the Federal Ministry of Art, Culture and Creative Economy. IDICE had its origins under the previous Vice President Osinbajo's office, where it was initially it's investment in digital and innovation and creative enterprises and something along those lines. And it was originally brought from the Vice President's office in collaboration with AFD, AFDB, Agence Sans Frontières, the French people, and a few other partners. So what that means is that IDICE at its inception had components dealing very heavily with the digital aspects of the economy, but also significantly had taken place and was created before the introduction and the creation of our own ministry, which came about in 2023. So that's the first thing. It's actually its own separate standalone project. The second thing I would then say on that is the fact that it had itself sort of thematically was dealing with both the creative economy side of it, and it was also dealing with the digital side and the digital training aspects of that. And so what you're seeing now and the work that we as a ministry have been working very hard to do, which again can be frustrating because it comes across, people that we've just had these protests recently, people are looking for impact, people are looking for change. And this is the kind of reflective of the kind of back channel work that we're trying to do. Because this IDICE and its enormous funding had been specifically allocated but taken place prior to the Creative Economy Ministry being set up, the majority of its programs, the majority of its thrust was all within the digital economy space. And so what we have been doing and painstakingly so over the last couple of months has been creating that dialogue with IDICE to actually have our programs reflected in the work they're doing, taking on those aspects of the work that we felt that we were best positioned to be able to deliver and making a much more rounded program. Sorry, again, I apologize for the light situation. So, in order to properly articulate what it means when we say we wanted it to be a rounded program, I think it's good to try and explain what exactly the ministry is trying to do on the job creation and economic expansion front. I think for a long time, we've all been witness to a ministry of culture that has been very heavily seen as a sort of, a sort of a day-to-day, they're just there. There's not really, you don't really look to it for as much of an impetus. When they created this new ministry, we really have grasped it as basically as offering a central economic industrial strategy to the country, a pillar to the way that we want this country's economy to fundamentally operate differently. For decades, we've been dealing with the issues of people saying, Nigeria needs to diversify economy. In fact, it's an issue throughout West Africa, diversify economy, and it never really happens because we never really get, and I don't mean to use this as a pun, but we never really think creatively, what is it exactly that the Nigerian economy can do better, more effectively, and in a cutting edge way that perhaps other industries in other countries can't. And so we really decided that, the creative economy, we're going to take that thing that Nigerians do better than anyone else and make that a central pillar of how we hope that this administration can hopefully offer a new generation, the next generation of Nigerians, new opportunities, a new economic future, and a completely different model to how we try to provide for our people and make sure that they're getting what they need from government. Now, what this then means in terms of IDICE is that IDICE, to go into it in a bit of detail, it's broken into two key components. You have what they call the catalytic investments. The catalytic investments are basically a financial mechanism which are used as a way, I think it's being done through specific venture capital funds, and their job is to basically be able to use really robust techniques, methods to be able to identify those sort of commercial opportunities within the creative economy which are suitable for investment, that are going to be on a be able to generate income and then hopefully develop the economy more broadly. However, as a ministry, we are looking at the other part of the IDICE thing, which is not the catalytic investments, because let the business people do the business people stuff. We're looking at the programmatic component. The programmatic component is about doing those things that only government can do when it comes to supporting an industry. And I think this is something that, again, I was talking about this with Baba Agba earlier, is one of the real challenges about the way that we do government in Nigeria, is a lot of people see government as basically the first stop for basically your venture capital needs, right? People come to government with proposals thinking, what is it that government can fund me to do? And the reality is we are trying to make it so everyone can compete effectively, fairly, and put out their own vision, put out their own work, and have the support that they need. And so what that means is that we are trying to lay the foundations. And so what we've done when it comes to IDICE is taken the programmatic component, not the catalytic investment part, but the programmatic component, and that's the bit that we are focused on delivering. And there are several programmatic components. I should stop using the word components, but there are several programmatic parts of that we are really interested in. So the first I would point out is they are trying to have 175, and this is a specific corresponding as a specific output of the programmatic element of IDICE, which is 175,000 youth trained in certificates in basic, intermediate, and advanced ICT skills, and 270 startups supported to access business development services, mentorship, including female youth cohorts. So basically, what that means broadly is helping people get the kind of accreditation that they need and helping them develop businesses. So what are we as a ministry trying to do on that? Well, we've got a groundbreaking IP policy that we're actually in the final stages of implementing. We are trying to make it easier for people to be able to actually, for the first time, be able to take their creative endeavors to the bank to be able to get a loan in order to expand. Critically, however, we're also setting up the Creative Leap Accelerator program. The Creative Leap Accelerator program is an unprecedented initiative where effectively we're going to be using our power as a government to be able to bring partners together, being able to then identify those parts of the creative economy which are growing fastest or have the greatest skills gap, and then setting out a platform on which you can then access the training with which to then meet those needs. So, for example, if let's say, the film industry in our conversations with stakeholders are saying that, we need a lot more people working in, let's say, set design or production or film and camera, whatever it is, we can then go to use as a government, we can then go out talk to major international corporations who are really interested in investing as part of their CSR responsibilities, but also as their talent hunt, to be able to invest in Nigeria. And so we go to them and say, look, we want to provide training. Here's a platform. You can do this. And so that's something that we've just launched CLAP. We are now, people can already start registering and onboarding so that they can be able to make use of those programs. And that's also going to be accompanied with about 600 physical spaces where people are then going to be able to not only access, because it's easy to access courses. You have Coursera, Udemy, blah, blah, blah. You can do all these different courses, but we also want you to have an opportunity to be able to actually implement it, like actually have a chance to be able to try out what you're learning. And we think that's going to be a much more effective program. So that's something we're doing in terms of that programmatic element of iDice. The next one I would take us to would be the ecosystem development. So this is again under the same component. So we have signed recently an MOU, which is we are doing alongside with the Nigerian Economic Summit Group to deliver at least 5 policies. I've already mentioned the IP policy, which I already said is going to be feeding into things like creatives' ability to be able to access funding based on their creative economy work, but also improving the robustness of the enforcement mechanism so that when you do create something, not only is it going to be easier for you to be able to access funding, not only is it going to be easier for you to then be able to actually register that trademark, which you're going to use to access that funding. But thirdly, it means that if somebody does infringe on your IP rights, it's going to be easier for you to then enforce your right. So that's what we're doing on IP policy, and that's why it's so central and one of the key things that the minister was so keen to get off the ground. The second thing we're working on, but I can perhaps talk about this a bit later on, is a robust tax and incentives regime to be able to make it easier for Nigeria to be able to become a manufacturer of creative content. So what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean us as a government being able to find like financing specific productions, but what we mean is there's a lot that goes on in terms of the labor and the legwork of a studio. You know, let's say it's the editing and this is Baba's expertise, but like I said, there's a lot that goes into it. I'm thinking editing, sound, all that kind of stuff, and it's about basically bringing that onshore, bringing that to Nigeria to provide jobs to young Nigerians to do that work. Because you may recently have heard about the big strike that happened in the United States because of all these issues around paying of FX people and the rest of it, because there's a huge labor force that supports creative productions. Why can't we be that for? And we've already got a model identified for us, because that's what they've been doing in South Africa for some time. But we are better placed, and we can do it more effectively. We're also going to have a creative economy policy, which again is going to be focused on development, regulation, and the rest of it. We also have a cultural policy, which is going to be the next policy we're doing after the after the IP policy, which are then again protect our ability, improve our ability to with our preservation, with maintaining our cultural heritage sites, which again is going to then feed into many other aspects by making sure that what our cultural heritage is of a requisite quality and sustainable footing for it then to be able to generate income in the long term. I would also point to the fact that we are going to be looking at in creating, as part of the programmatic elements, a creative industry competition across all 36 states of the federation. With this, we're planning on partnering with the EDC, the Enterprise Development Center of Lagos of Pan Atlantic University, and so then that's again going to give Nigerians everywhere an opportunity to be able to showcase their talents, which again they can then put onto CLAP, and then is going to allow them to then access international marketplaces and international sort of training opportunities. We've also got then the partnership work that we're doing. This is all ecosystem stuff, right? We've also got the work that we're doing with the Big Win Philanthropy Group, right? Who are going to be have a track record across Africa in youth job creation, right? So we have 4 key work streams that we're going to be doing with them around creating an unprecedented and the most robust data collection sort of exercise that we've ever done to map the entire creative economy in Nigeria, so that, for example, if we're now creating interventions, we know who we're trying to support, how they need the support, and where we can provide the support. And that is going to be the first initiative that's going to be rolled out within the next 2 months. We're also having the job creation strategy, which is going to be specifically focused on the opportunities that young people need and how best to use government apparatus to support them. They're also supporting us on CLAP more broadly about making sure we have a curriculum, because it's not enough that we just have an aggregator. We want a really robust curriculum that meets local needs and also industry needs. So, for example, you could have an aggregator of courses that's great, but let's say somebody making hula in Borno State, or somebody making kaftans, let's say in Sokoto, that has different economic sort of needs than somebody than an animator working, let's say from Enugu, or let's say a project a social media project designer from Lagos. So we're really trying to make sure that the strategy we're taking is really sort of laser focused on the specific needs of young people all over the country. Apologies. Please feel free to stop me, because I know that time we have a time. Oh, sorry. How long have I got left? Yeah, there's lots to go. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll slow down a bit. Apologies. Still got a lot to get through. I think the last couple of things that I'd really point to would be, let me think of the really big ones. We are also going to be supporting, so we've been working with major infrastructure partners to provide the infrastructure spaces that are so desperately needed to take the sector to the next level. This is again part of the programmatic element of what IDICE is trying to do, because the reality is that the private sector is unable to, by design, and also because of historical challenges that we've had as a sector, to be able to build the kind of infrastructure that we need as a country, not both generally, but also specifically within the creative economy. And so then again, we're working both with international partners like the FMACCE, who are going to be providing project funding to things like film studios, galleries, and a lot of the big infrastructure bringing together. But we're also going to be domesticating. We're looking forward to announcing this in the next couple of weeks, our own Nigerian infrastructure, let's just call it a mechanism, which is going to be able to pull together all the funding from both international parties, the Nigerian government, our own budget, as well as other partners, so that they can, which is going to be specifically focused on delivering the sort of infrastructure that the creative economy needs. Sorry, yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm very aware. I think is my 15 minutes up. I could keep going for another half hour, but I know there's lots of other other comments that people need to make.
Of course, you have like 1.5 of your 15 minutes left, but I'm sure that there will probably be one or two more questions that will get you to speak to whatever you have not spoken to just yet. And okay, so because some of these issues overlapped, I hear you referring back to Babagba. We'll talk about this, we'll talk about that. So we would go straight and take, all presentations, and then we'll now sit down with you, and then we can get participants here to ask questions. And quite fortunately, I saw Imra arrived while we were doing this. So our next presentation, which I'll just go straight to, is Imram Duba. You have the mic, and you have 15 minutes. Thank you for joining us. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Jerry, and good evening, everyone. My name is Imran Garba Duba. I'm a special advisor to the President on Partnerships and Innovation, and I'm also the team lead on the Creative Leap Acceleration Program. So, CLAP, you've heard already a lot about CLAP. CLAP is the ministry's first and foremost one-stop shop for capacity building, training, incubation, mentorship programs, partnerships, funding, and grants. I think that was like kind of a mouthful. So it's a one-stop shop. Think of it as a nexus for creatives that will first and foremost give them capacity building that will later on or instantaneously lead to economic growth and economic stimulation in the creative industry. We're looking for CLAP is a platform that we're hoping will give creative the necessary toolkits, the necessary mentorship and learning platform that they can turn their creative ideas, their creative aspirations into jobs, into something that they can turn into a business that will be on not just a local platform, but an international platform. We want CLAP basically to help creatives turn from an artist into a business, into an enterprise, into a global player in the creative industry. We're looking to partner. I think Modibo touched on it a little. I like to say, CLAP is if the creatives are if creatives are it's the heart of CLAP. Our partners are the wings that will carry it to success. CLAP can't work without partners, and we've really been looking to partner with the best of the best, not just local, but also internationally. We're looking to bring on those that can offer capacity building platforms and also mentorship, because we realize that mentorship is a very big part of getting CLAP to succeed. It's not just about training people, but it's also giving them the industry insights, trusted and tested, that they can use to implement and grow their business, their artworks into businesses. I'm going to give you a quick, I'm going to share my screen if I can.
Yes, you can. I'll quickly make
share
that
my screen
possible.
and so that you can see the.
Oh, yes.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So as we said, CLAP has actually launched. We launched in August 2nd. It's actually live right now. We are currently on the pilot phase. So as you can see, it doesn't look like the typical Nigerian Nigerian government website. Let me put it like that. We've really did our best trying to make it as creative as possible. This is this is the Honorable Minister. It shows the types of trainings that you can get, the international market exposure, and over access to funding and grants. We're trying to partner, as Modibo said, with IDI so as to get them on board. We want creators to be able to access the IDI's fund through the CLAP program. CLAP will also act as a marketplace for creatives. It ties into the ministry's goal of IP securitization. We want CLAP to be able to creatives to see that whatever artworks they have, whatever creative artworks, art forms, we want them to be able to share. Remember, it's kind of also an incubation platform. People that bringing different creatives together to work together, share their artwork, share their creative ideas, so that they can create new forms of art. As you can see, some of the artworks that we're sharing on CLAP are actually, this is the first time people are seeing them. I think from the Art 234 Arts exhibition that took place in Lagos, we took some of the creatives that showcased their artworks, and we're using those as our placeholders on CLAP. So we're looking to offer a wide range of training programs, from culinary to video game development to pottery to even poetry. As you know, our minister is also a poet. So we're really looking to have everybody on board. We have a no one left behind policy, meaning that from the urban to the rural areas, we really want to make sure that CLAP meets the needs of everyone. We don't want anyone to have the idea, oh, CLAP is for the people in the urban areas. We want them to know that it's also for the people in the rural areas. It's one of these reasons why we're also making sure some of our partners, we want to give access to the creatives in terms of subsidized access to certain toolkits, such as Blender, Unreal, Unity Engine, Adobe. We want to give them some of the, let's say, premium services that they have. We want to partner, we want to have CLAP to give the creatives access to these toolkits at subsidized rates. I'm going to also, I don't know how long I have left. The CLAP will be, the ministry is running CLAP through its NCAC, the National Council of Arts and Culture. We're going to run it through a public-private partnership with that's a Premly group. It's through this vehicle that the ministry plans on achieving CLAP. The NCAC has its development agency of the ministry, and they have over a combined total of 600 creative hubs spread across Nigeria. And we're looking to leverage these assets to make sure we can able to deploy CLAP in all the 36 geopolitical all the 36 zones of the nation. I'm going to give you take you now to the portal of CLAP. That's where actually you register and the training does take place. As you can see, we have for the creatives and for partners and for businesses. You can join as either a creative looking to learn, or you can join as a partner looking to offer your training services to CLAP. It's like I said, it's not just also the training, whether you have mentorship or internship programs, we want you to be able to join CLAP and have share those training and access to funds for the creatives. Though I'll not be able to, I think I've already registered, but we've made it very streamlined for registration. The moment you put in your NIN or BVN, it automatically puts in all the necessary information that you have. So at the back end, you don't have, we know that some people get, they don't like filling out forms. So as soon as you do that, it fills everything out. And that way we know, it's also a way to monitor who is registering on CLAP. There's a, excuse me, there's an Origins platform that we're also incorporating into CLAP. The Origin is data management system that we're looking to incorporate and be able to capture all the necessary data that we can from the creative industry. And that data can then be refunneled into policy formulation and know what do the creative actually need and what they actually require. So Origins is, let's see, the data management aspect of CLAP. So yeah, that is, I would say, a quick run through of CLAP, but I'm happy to answer if there are any questions anybody has. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sure that it won't be out of place to clap for CLAP, and we can do that using our. We can do that using our.
That's one of our slogans, actually. Clap for CLAP.
Oh, okay. So that's good. So thank you, Imran. And so I mean, there is a whole lot to to dissect as far as this and the previous is concerned. But very quickly, and thank you also for the timeliness. Even though I know you wanted to say a lot more, so but we'll move on. And this time around, we are going straight to Modibo. And sorry, don't mind me. We've done session 2, so we are going straight now to session 3. Intellectual property policy. Roshan will have the floor now for the next 15 minutes or less.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good evening. Yeah, so just before I dive into the IP policy, because my own updates are very, very, very few, but they're very good as well. But I think it's key to touch upon first what Modibo said about IDICE. I think after this session, so just for some people who may have questions, we will be here to answer your questions, but we'll also share some documentation around IDICE as well as CLAP, and also on any necessary information around the IP policy and the Presidential Committee for Tax Reforms and Fiscal Policy and what they're doing for the creative sector. And an additional update on IDICE, which we just got, I think, yesterday. So just so you know, and this is for those of us, I know like Professor Silva, Professor Dandara, who we met with last week, who are working with tertiary institutions, for example, and running programs in the creative sector or creative programs through the tertiary institutions, that IDICE has now opened up the floor basically for universities and tertiary institutions in Nigeria to apply to basically host some of the creative hubs that IDICE has outlined to deliver as part of the program across the nation. So I think this information has already been passed to the Committee of Vice Chancellors across the nation, but I know that we have some scholars here who are very deep in the creative programs in the university. So please, let's look at that opportunity as well. And then on CLAP, yes, it is live. I can see Baba is already answering those questions. CLAP is live right now for registration. So we're not just showing you, a demo. It was recently launched, and this is our first program, and we really want you to key into it. So please, all your questions about CLAP, we really had to drag Imran in here. He's a very busy guy, just so we could, have him. You are free to sign up at this time, and you can even go and check out the website while we have this discussions. So yes, onto the intellectual property policy. I know that there's been a lot of attention. If you're a creative practitioner, you're very keen about this policy. I know that there's been a lot of issues around exploitation of creatives, especially in Nigeria. We know that most of the areas, we have over 40 subsectors within the cultural and creative economies, spanning from cultural heritage to arts, visual arts, entertainment, performing arts, design. We have a couple overlapping sectors like architecture, interior design, and a number of things that may seem to fall under other sectors as well. And one of the issues that we've had is not just protection for intellectual property, but also administration. So we know that we do have a copyright commission which sits under the Ministry of Justice, and there's been a lot of talk and issues around how the Copyright Commission administers some of its functions as established in its act, which we all know most of the acts establishing some of our government entities are quite outdated and not responsive to some of our emerging subsectors, including especially the ones that fall under our ministry, such as the culinary arts, makeup and fashion, and all of these subsectors that didn't really receive a focus as at the time that some of these laws were being created back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And this is why we've prioritized the intellectual property policy. Like Modibo mentioned earlier, we have 5 priority policies which we aim to roll out at least within the first term of this administration. But the very priority one, the one we hope to be able to roll out in the coming weeks, and I think it's good to just mention that we are now done, with the drafts. We've basically wrapped up all of the drafting in collaboration with the World Intellectual Property Organization. And what is now left is what we are now going to do is the last step for the policy before it goes out, before it's signed, by the president, is the stakeholder engagement, the public stakeholder engagement, which is sort of like this, where we have every single person in this session right now and in this room, basically come in and have a joint review of this policy and make sure that it reflects your needs. It identifies your issues. The strategies that we have outlined in the intellectual property policy are able to address those issues, and the solutions are responsive to your areas or subsectors and all of that. We know that there were people who were animators, people who were doing game design, people who were doing fashion, who were not previously covered. And that's why it's so important that when we do, I know that there's a reluctance to engage with government, especially from the creatives. In my recent interview, I had mentioned that there is not, we're not lost on the fact that the creative sector has largely been built by the creatives and the creators and has had very little help from the government in the past. But we now have an opportunity to change that. We're not trying to control the sector. We are not trying to build what is, we already know how large the creative sector in Nigeria is. We are only going to come in to support what is already being done, to scale it, to expand it, to make sure that the business environment for creators is ideal. And that is why the intellectual property policy is set to be rolled out within the next couple of weeks. And in the earliest weeks of September, the stakeholder engagement event will take place. It will be a 3-day stakeholder engagement where you can come and engage on the 3 different thematic areas of the intellectual property, one being industrial design. So this affects people who are registering patents and trademarks, especially those more on the scientific side. And then the copyrights area, which affects a lot of our creatives in our subsectors, the filmmakers, the music producers, the artists, the visual artists, the craftsmen. And then thirdly, the emerging sectors such as gaming, animation, fashion, culinary arts, for makeup artists and all of those things, we need to be able to ensure that all of these people who are under our subsectors as a ministry are protected. So we urge you to please come out and engage and have a chance to actually contribute to this policy. It's not a government policy because it's made by government. It's a government policy because it is for the people. And if we do not engage and participate actively in building this policy together, when it is now put into place, the government's strategic direction will be built on that policy. All of the laws will be reviewed based on that policy. And if it does not capture your needs and your issues, and the solutions are not responsive to you as a creative, you will suffer for it. You know, the administrators who are passing this into law will not suffer for it, but you as a creator will actually not have the best experience if you're not able to take the opportunity. So yes, I know that there's a reluctance to engage with the public sector and the government as creators, but we need to set those sentiments aside. We now have an administration which is willing to work for the creatives, which is why our ministry has been set up, because we recognize the potential and we recognize the importance of the creative sectors, and now we are giving it the focus that it deserves. So yes, please engage with engage through CLAP, engage through the ministry's platforms, and stay updated and abreast with the intellectual property policy and the cultural policy, which are the two that will be rolling out this year. And we expect that the creatives will be the core architects of the creative economy policy that will now be rolling out most likely early next year, as well as the incentives for the creative economy policy, which I'm sure Baba will also touch upon during his session. That is where we build the business environment and ensure that there's tax incentives, there's rebates, there's exemptions and all of those things for people moving equipment into Nigeria, people who are creating, people who are generating local content and producing money for Nigeria within Nigeria. And that's what we hope to be able to do, you know, over the next couple weeks. I'm sorry, I wasn't looking at the... Okay, great. These are old messages. So on the intellectual property policy, like I said, final draft ready. Well, the draft is ready. What would be the final draft is what will incorporate your input, and using the platforms of Professor Silva, Mr. Jerry, Mr. Omachi, and all of you creatives, and all of the platforms that we have that has so many creatives doing the work in all of the states of Nigeria, all across the country. We are going to invite you. We're going to try to engage you to ensure that this policy actually works for you, and we hope to get your input, because it's very easy for the guys in the industrial design. The industrial design, the patents office, the patents registry, trademarks office, and so on and so forth are run by engineers. And they do the work that they do for engineers. Unfortunately, besides, I think, Baba, who has been in the entertainment industry for decades, and is an expert, you know, and is one of you and a creative himself. Some of us are not creatives. We're not filmmakers. We're not musicians. We're more technical guys. However, if we are not able to feel the pangs of what a creative experience is, but if we have your support and your inputs, we're now able to ensure that whatever policy we develop and whatever strategic roadmaps we develop capture your needs as creatives, and they're not built for administrators, but they're built for the sector. So on intellectual property policy, I think that's about all of my updates. Yes, we wanted to use this opportunity to make sure that you're aware of the policy, you're aware that you know, it's at its final stages, and you're aware of the need for you to engage, that we need you to be able to roll it out and to make the policy, you know, responsive to you. So which was why I made sure that we had a little section on this, just so we could just so you have the information that you need. But we're still happy to answer any more questions regarding this topic before the end of this session. So yes, I think I'll stop there for now. And yeah, I think Baba is up next. That's one of you.
Yeah. Thank you, Roshan. Thank you, Roshan. I mean, it's quite interesting that all of this is already happening. And like you said, and also mentioned earlier, the whole idea of this is to bring us all together. Let's be aware of what is going on. Let's see opportunities and let's see how we can tap into them as creatives. So I'm sure it is not by incident that we're having Baba Agba coming, coming last on this, schedule. So I have the pleasure of yielding the floor to Baba Agba to make his presentation, after which we, go straight into interactions. You're welcome, Baba.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Prof. Imal. And thank you to everyone on the call for having us and making out time to join. Also, thanks to my colleagues for all the sort of enlightenment and explanations they've given about the work that we've been doing. It's been a long road, but what I like to say is of good work and real work that needs to be done. I'll go briefly. I probably will take a bit less of the time just to give more time for conversation. But talking about the tax incentives and the fiscal policy side. So coming in as the administration coming in, one of the key focuses was how do we increase employment? How do we grow the economic value of the sector and thus its contribution to the national economy? So how do we create more opportunities? How do we enable people to flourish? And one thing that the minister always says is that, the creative industries is what it is today in spite of government. And so if the industry and the space could get to this point without any particular focus or assistance, just by its own effort, imagine what can happen if government does what it needs to do with the right enablers. So one of those places we identified were the sort of the fiscal side of things, so the government spending, the government taxation, and critically how what's it called, duties, waivers, and all those things that apply to the sector. So I would give different categories of things that we're looking at, but before I go into that, what really anchored our approach was, okay, we have to have a sort of policy on incentives. Basically, I think that's the best way we can tag all of them. So these are all various forms of incentives that are meant to spur on activity. Thankfully, Mr. President created the Presidential Tax and Fiscal Policy Committee that reports directly to him with a mandate to review all laws relating to these issues and come up with recommendations, draft bills, and work on the implementation. So one of the things we did was we reached out to them. The chairman, Mr. Taiwo, came over to see the Honorable Minister at our office with the team. We had made an initial submission of the areas we're looking at. And we had good deliberations. They liked what we're saying. So a joint committee was requested by the Honorable Minister. So we have a joint committee with the Presidential Committee that gives us a permanent forum through which we engage and share ideas, and we're kept up to date. So the whole of yesterday, actually, we had an in-person session with the Presidential Committee. So that was a very good one. And I'll let you know some of the updates that come out from that. So one of the pillars we looked at is how the industry is taxed. Now, obviously, you have the direct taxes, you have the indirect taxes. People might say some people don't pay direct taxes, that's all indirect. But if we look at it, you'd see stuff like from inception, when you buy equipment, these equipments have been heavily taxed in the form of duties at the customs point. So you're getting in a camera. By the time they add the duty, the levies, the surcharges, they've increased it so much. So we took the approach that the inputs into the industry are very critical and are not the point that government should be trying to put so much of a burden on. So what we've spoken to them about is the possibility of, for two categories now. So you have the sort of everyday use. How can we remove or reduce the duty and VAT that's put on these things at the point of importation? So when people are importing cameras, studio equipment, photography equipment, art equipment, musical equipment in the country, can we reduce the duty or even abolish it if possible, to the point that it makes it more accessible? And they've said, yes, they agree with us reviewing it. So what we're meant to come back to them with this week is basically our own suggestions of what those rates might be if it's going to be a reduction and not an outright removal, and even if it's going to be a removal, maybe for a certain time period. So they've been very receptive to that. We also propose that for specific investments, so businesses coming to invest in music studios, sound stages, film studios, animation studios, and whatnot, those sort of heavy infrastructure projects, cinemas, arenas, performance venues, that the government waives the duty and the VAT for bringing those things. So you might have people spending heavy money, 1 million, 2 million to 10 or $20 million. You don't want to now further burden them. So sort of to make the investment ceiling a bit lower and spur on development. And they like the idea of that as well. So that's something that they've taken in to look at as part of their investment schedule. So it's more on the policy side. So I guess I would just explain that there are two sides of this. There are some things that are more policy directive, so that would necessarily come from the Minister of Finance to Customs around the excise rates and whatnot. And there are some things that are acts of Parliament, which are bills that need to be changed. So an example of a bill that might need to be changed might be something like the personal income tax or the corporate taxation, or something like charitable donations being deductible for taxes, all those type of things. So our sort of approach to them is we either send them things to include in the drafts they are doing, or we send them the policy notes for us to engage with customs and finance. So those deliberations have been very good. We asked for charitable donations to be tax deductible to help us spur the private sector to invest in supporting the arts and the crafts. So anybody that has a foundation, a school, or an initiative that's registered as a non-profit should be able to benefit from this private support. And the privates do it because they get the brand leverage and they also get the deductions. And that's something that they've been very amenable to. So they are going to incorporate in their drafts. We asked for different things like withholding taxes, let me say minimum taxes that we have to pay when we comply to be waived or removed or zeroed out for us. And they said they like that idea. They're going to take a look at that and try and include that in the draft. And there's not too much I can say because I know some stuff that I've gone in advance, but I'll just keep it at the outcomes are looking very good on all these fronts. Now, we asked for specific incentives as well, apart from the duty waivers, for investments in actual infrastructure. So is there a way we can put in an investment promotion regime that gives us effectively, let us say, almost something like a discounted tax rate for these businesses? So similar to how you have the pioneer status. So we're like, look at the pioneer status, look at all the other things we're doing. Can we work on these things to make them more attractive for investors? And it was interesting because so this is primarily targeted at infrastructure. And then you have things like production rebate. I'll call them production rebates, or what some people, let me say credits. So you might know that's film credits, film production credits. In the UK, they also have it for cultural events. So people doing exhibitions, festivals, people doing animation. And that's where when you spend money on a production, the government has a mechanism that you can claim some of your expense, a percentage as a credit when you're filing your taxes. So that, that one is more production leaning. So we discussed all these. They've said they like the idea that they will inculcate that in what they are doing. So pretty much we're going to have, once everything goes through, hopefully, a sort of production credits regime where if I spend, let's say, 100 million naira on an animation, for instance, and that's all qualifying local spend, maybe it's a 20%. So that 20% will be 20 million naira I can claim back as my taxes, which is almost, I know Modibo mentioned government is not going to finance, but yes, government is not going to finance in the typical way that it does, where it gives you the money up front, but it's pretty much a government guarantee, almost a refund, which you could then trade to other companies that want to offset their taxes. So it's also a way of government financing you and giving you access to cash flow, that finance. So that one is very big. But we're still debating with them if both will go, that would be discounted tax rate on the infrastructure, or what that balance is. So that's where we're also looking at it from a policy note point of view to finalize. So that was a very big one that we got. We looked at export exemption export income to be exempted from taxes. Sorry, I'm just smiling because I'm remembering some of the conversations we had. Now, I would keep any major announcements until the bills are officially given to Mr. President, hopefully next week or the week after, and transmitted to the National Assembly next month when they resume. But this particular one, with what we've been told, has been drafted already, and which was basically our request. To a certain extent, it will be huge, because if we get what we want, essentially, it's going to spur a lot of services, IP exports at a very favorable tax rate for that income, and also mean that we'll see heavy repatriation of income from creatives and the likes for their services. So your musicians performing abroad, your artists selling art abroad. So almost we're trying to create a window where that money can come back basically tax-free and unencumbered, and encourage that money to be repatriated, but which will be a form of them having money that they can use as investing. So those are the major things, but everything is pillared on making access to equipment, access to infrastructure, access to tools much easier, much cheaper, increasing access to higher end tools, reducing the burden of financiers, and also making the industry on that side, on the infrastructure side, more attractive. Then on the production side, trying to make investments going into production more attractive and to increase the flow. So everybody tells you our problem is finance, our problem is finance, our problem is finance. What we're basically saying is, financiers, if you come and finance this industry, by these credits that government is giving on your investment, by these favorable tax treatment, you're eventually effectively getting a de-risked finance, or government has or investment, or government has de-risked the investment for you. And now where this becomes very critical is that in our push to make Nigeria a major global identified center for creativity, and I like the word that Modibo used, we like to refer to it internally as this production, because we have the talent, we have the skills, we have the arts and everything and the gifts, but the ability to create with it hard or soft goods that we can export, we can share with ourselves, is the production side. We have to look at it as manufacturing, we have to look at it as industry. So for us, we want that industry to thrive. So we can create for ourselves, we can create for foreign markets, we want to export it. We want foreign people that have things they want to do to come here to get those things created. We want them to engage our creatives to help them create these things. So how do we do that? We have to make the infrastructure on ground top-notch, world-class, just like you find anywhere else, so that there's no worry in terms of the output. We have to give capacity to our people so that they can perform and use those talents that they have at those same levels, give them the best business practices, which is why you see stuff like CLAP that really focuses a lot on capacity building, access to knowledge, access to opportunities, access to incentives, but also how do we compete from a financing that production point of view that makes those people that want to come and produce find it much more attractive or make their investments cheaper. So for instance, if somebody, I always like to use this example, if somebody's making a film for $10 million in Los Angeles, maybe with the incentives and everything in Atlanta, Georgia, they might be able to get it in for 8 million. Maybe if they go to London, it might be 7 or 6. South Africa might give them 5 or 4. We're telling them, Nollywood, for instance, second largest film industry in the world, largest English-speaking industry in the world. It doesn't use those level of budgets on a regular day. But we're saying, okay, maybe Nollywood might be 2 or 3. Instead of 10 in California, come to Nigeria. We have the talent, we have the skills, we have the infrastructure, we have the incentives. You can always get 3 for 1. For us, it's a massive upscale in budget and activity. One of the cheapest countries in the world in terms of cost of living on a dollar parity level. I know it sounds controversial, but when you look at the numbers, the exchange rates just make it so. So that is the advantage we have. That exchange rate going in the wrong way is an advantage for everybody that's productive, because it means that all of a sudden you become doubly more affordable to the person in the West that is still stuck on their same thing. So it means you can sell, you can outcompete the other markets. So for us, it's how do we sell that narrative? How do we create that pathway so that your companies, even if they might not want to sell here, might not value the local market from I'm not making that much in dollars point of view, How can a Disney come and do their animations here and then export it to the world? How can a Netflix do productions that are not necessarily focused for Nigerians, but for everybody else? How can people that are interested in furniture come in and set up and do it and send it to the world? How can people that want to do arts, crafts, merchandise, all those things, fashion? So for us, the gift or the real resource is the Nigerian people in terms of their ability to create, their talent, their skill. How can we create an enabling environment and a chain of things that enables them to be able to monetize and be productive and grow the economy? And once that happens, it's giving agency to people, it's giving everybody the freedom to do what they need to do. And like Modibo said, you don't have to come to government then every time piecemeal for money or for patronage. You're able to do this thing in the free space. So that's really the big vision that you'll be able to learn from all the things that my colleagues have also said, from the IP to the CLAP to the job creation and capacity building structures. It's all geared to, so it's not one policy, it's not one magic bullet, it's not anybody that tells you one thing will be done and it will be safe. No, all these things are carefully planned and curated so that they come together to create this enabling environment we keep preaching about. So I'll leave it there for now so we can have the Q&As. But thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And I hope we have more of these as we go on, so we update and get feedback from you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Baba. And I mean, this is loaded, and before we run into the Q&A, we are not doing badly with our time, but also because we are creatives. By our programming, we said after all the 4 presentations, there was going to be a 5-minute health break. But rather than do 5 minutes health break and we lose more time or people leave, I can see a hand up already. I would rather just say, let us do a 3 minutes of spoken word, a very quick 3 minutes. It's not time for Q&A yet. Just give us 3 minutes. Let's drink water on top of what we have had already, and then we go straight into Q&A. And so I like to invite Yimofe. It's going to be about 3 minutes. That will serve as our health break, and then we go into the Q&A. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adetola Eyimofejeri Adeshewu, and I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you so much to the speakers. So very quickly, I'm going to deliver my spoken word piece, and I'd like you all to enjoy. Picture this: a world where the youth are free from the clutches of Igbo, not bound by the chains of cocaine. A world where Canadian law does not cloud the reasoning of an average student, where we don't have to be high before we think smart, where weed remains an unwanted plant, not an instrument of highness, and tramadol, a cure to pain, not a sure means to travailler. See, it's not so difficult. It's not so hard to build a world like this. A world where depression is not a cause for abuse, where hardship is not an excuse to puff smokes of kidney failure, but it takes more than imagination. It takes much more than envisioning a substance-free future. It takes love, intentionality, commitment, action. It takes the government to rise, to create opportunities standard enough to transform the Oncolos youth to, hello, this is Joseph Daniels of Radio and Electronics, and how may I help you? It takes reaching out to friends, to loved ones, because no one has to do life alone. No one. So let us join our hands together to create a world where the youth's cries are heard and they have no reason, absolutely no reason, to embrace drugs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yimofe, and that's our health break. I am sure you know that performing art, theater, whatever, music, and all of them can be therapeutic in nature. They serve varying purposes. So thank you, Yimofe. I can see hands up already, and so I don't just want to say any other thing. I just want us to go straight into this engagement, and we'll be handing over to Mr. Omachi, Owocho Omachi. Please, you have the mic.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Thanks. And thank you very much for all the presentation, Aliu Modibo, Imra Duba, Ababagba, and Roshan Nanaya Kara. We will expect several questions now. I can see hands up. Even though I have my question as well, I would like to take questions from participants first. I don't know the order in which the hands were raised, but I can see Ima Silva. Ima Silva, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Machi. First and foremost, I just want to thank our speakers for this opportunity for us to be able to get insight into the very extensive work they're doing to help, start the progress of our industry. So one thing I realized is that this came about today because we come from a large community of creatives and we want to engage the government, and we know that it cannot just be the first and the only time. One thing I realized from this conversation is that it has to be an ongoing conversation, and Mr. Jerry, Mr. Omachi, we will have to create a subgroup of some sort from the various groups that came together to make this possible. We will reach out to other groups that's going to form some sort of a committee so that we'll continue to get updates and be able to take it down to our members. Another thing I wanted to, point out is the fact that, over 200 people registered, but we can see that we have only about 20 something people. And, as I'm a creative, so I understand how sometimes we can be so busy doing our thing. And when it comes to the business side of what we do and the money side of what we do and the technical side of what we do, we may not be that keen. But nevertheless, even the groups we built over several years, and we understand ourselves, but we still have to do what is right. And we need to be able to get their buy-in. So that is why I want to first and foremost advocate for this post-event strategy so that we will keep this going. Secondly, I want to pose a question because I know that, like one of the speakers said, well, I think more than one speaker said, the basic thing in the mind of the average, they've spoken from an institutional perspective, but I want to speak from the perspective of an individual, a creative, just like hundreds and thousands of creatives that we represent. What comes to their mind, our mind, is number one, how can I help myself? Or if they have a creative enterprise, how can we help ourselves? So I want the speakers, if possible today or even afterward, to say, okay, so leaving this place, these are the steps to take. Number one, go and register on CLAP. Number two, do this. Number three, do this. Number four, do this. Because we know that even if we want to access resource, there is a point where we need to have our capacity built. We need to have our books in place. We need to be able to, we cannot get loans without having our books in place or having our structure in place. So we would like, if it is possible today or if it's afterwards, we need to know, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Do this, and that gives you the first level of access to be able to even now engage. I just want to appeal for that. I said this question so that it will help the questions coming afterwards to put things in perspective. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ima. Do we take the answers now or we go to other questions immediately? Okay, maybe we should just take all the questions at once and see if the answers can.
You should.
Sorry. If I may, just think I understand why I see the benefit in taking all the questions at once, but I think just so we can provide like
Living green.
hello.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, she's up now. Can we take your question now?
Hi. So my name is Chinelo. I work with the media. Precisely, I cover. I want to ask, where is the media or press in all these things that the Federal Ministry of Culture, of Arts, Culture, and Creative Economy is doing? I ask this because I keep getting press releases from the ministry, and these press releases are not illuminating at all. And then when I reach out to ask questions about the press release I'm getting, or when I request for interviews, I am hardly, in fact, nobody responds to me. And I've asked all of my colleagues in this sector who are also art reporters, please, how are you getting? Are you being engaged? How they said they complain of the same thing. So it's either if you're not a television station and if you're not premium times, you don't get the attention of the federal ministry to give you. I mean, I know it took me several months to get to the ministry, and I submitted my letter, and up to today, nothing has happened. So where is media being brought into this? Because I feel like if we brought in, then it would make the diffusion of this information easier for people to have access to them. That's the first question. Now, the second question is, this could also go for both CLAP and IDAS, but majorly IDAS. I'm sorry, CLAP, because you mentioned about it being open for both rural dwellers or those in the hinterlands. So my question now is, how exactly do you intend to include them in your program, especially creatives in the hinter areas or rural areas that are not necessarily literate in terms of speaking and writing English language, but are kind of like rich in experience and in skills when it comes to their crafts. And then the final question that I wanted to ask is, sorry, I'm actually coming. Yeah, so the last question I have is, how is the registration for the trainers under CLAP? How is that to be done? And who decides the qualifications for anybody who is going to train on that platform? Thank you very much.
Good evening. Do you mind if we deal with the questions? Because this is now 4 questions I think we've had. I think it would be difficult to try and address all of them at the end. Convener, is that all right?
It's okay.
Okay.
Take the answers.
I think, should I, what was the first question? What was the very first question? Okay,
I take the ones for CLAP.
Sure.
Please go ahead, Imran.
Okay. So regarding the sensitization, that it's a very important point you've raised, and that's why I said we have a no one left behind policy. Like I said, we're currently in the pilot phase, but even within the pilot phase, we have a robust media plan in terms of sensitization for different areas in Nigeria. It's part of the should I say the it's part of the media plan for CLAP, is to go into areas and make sure that, okay, we have this product, we have this service, and this is how you can use it. I think just today earlier on, Roshana Modibo were showcasing some of the how-to videos that they had created. So these videos then will be made in different languages, not just in English, but in Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, major languages, so that people can at least understand it. And then also in terms of reaching everyone, part of the CLAP's part of the KPI we actually look to take with CLAP is internet deployment of internet accessibility. We can't just say, okay, we're offering this platform, but then we know that people don't have the internet access to use CLAP. Part of our partnership program is actually partnering with internet service providers to provide internet services in these underserved areas, so that people can actually use affordable internet for people to use to get onto CLAP. Does that answer or?
Yeah,
I
Imran,
think
I'd just
that
like to add to
answers.
that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
again, regarding the training, you say how do we the onboarding process? Anyone can currently join, any potential partner right now, even you can go and join, but that doesn't mean your content is going to be just immediately you can start publishing content or training materials there. We're working on a course outline for the type of courses we need. If currently you registered as a club, there is an admin that would view everything what you have to offer before they allow you get onto the platform from the back end. That's working with the Prem League group and the NCAC. But like I said, we're still working on a curriculum, and then when we apply that curriculum, when we apply that curriculum, there it will be more standardized. But like I said, right, we're still on the pilot phase, and from this pilot phase, we're getting all the necessary information so that we can, when we're ready to fully launch, we'll have everything standardized.
If I may just add before I get to the second batch of questions around the curriculum, the media, and the rest of it, I think the first thing I wanted to say is, in our lifetimes, when have we ever really seen a well thought out, well run, well rolled out government program? And the reality is it's incredibly rare, because we don't really put, as a policy-making apparatus, we don't really put the right sort of data-led decision-making at the center of the way that we approach these issues. So that's why sequentially we've started with the data mapping of the entire creative industry, because it would be easier for us, for example, just to have gone out and start saying, okay, we have CLAP and come on, going on board, and without it being properly reflective of what the different areas of the country need, how they're trying to be supported, and the rest of it. So again, this is it's slower, but it's better because it's more thorough by making sure that we're doing a step by step. It begins by firstly understanding the space. We are a new ministry. This isn't like a database in terms of something we can adopt. We are having to build a lot of these systems from scratch. And so when we say that we're trying to implement an industrial strategy, we're being serious about what a genuine industrial strategy is that goes beyond just saying, oh, we're going to launch so-and-so program. We want to make it so that we have the right database foundations so that not just us, but also institutional investors know exactly where and when they're going to be investing. As to the actual step by step and about how people can get on board, I'm going to share my screen now and show you a short video which will allow you to get a bit of an idea about what this is going to look like. Just bear with me one moment while we get this up. This thing has been super slow. Okay, had it there for a second.
Try again now. I just made you a co-host. So try again.
Okay. Sorry, bear with me because yeah, it's just being very.
Mr. Jerry, kindly check the YouTube channel as well. There are questions there. So
yes,
that,
I have the questions. I was just waiting for us to be done with this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Do you want me to try?
Yeah, try and get up on your side. Okay, I found it. Sorry. Sure. Okay, good. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
So as you can see, it's going to be super straightforward. Let me just stop sharing. It's going to be super straightforward so that everyone who needs to register with the basic details I have available will be able to do so within a couple of minutes. And that will give them access to a range of different services for creatives, which will mean that immediately when it comes to the exact kind of thing you were mentioning in your question around what is it specifically that we can do for creatives, you'll immediately be able to access the training. There'll be specific government services which you'll be able to access, which you wouldn't be able to access elsewhere. And that will again have things like, for example, how to register a business, what are the commercial requirements, what are the legal requirements that you have to meet, how do you access financing, support to be able to access financing. So that is a specific thing that you'll be able to do just because of the program. Now, to go to the second participant's questions around the socialization, I think it was broadly around sort of like different areas, different languages and the rest of it. Absolutely. What we're doing is, again, we're trying to, instead of just rolling out programs, we are having partly there's the data work that we're doing, but also we're doing with the work with our partners. We are creating an incredibly robust curriculum, which is again going to be reflective of the 600 spaces which we have throughout the 36 geographic zones on the specific training that different areas need. And this again will be reflected in the language options that we're going to be providing, so that no matter where you are, there's going to be the right sort of courses available for you in a language that's going to be suitable for you. The other aspect of the question I wanted to address was this issue about media. The first thing I would say is that we definitely as a ministry recognize that we have not done nearly enough when it comes to the media aspects. And this has been a general challenge, many of which I guess are not really things that we would expect the public to be particularly aware about, but we understand it's a difficult operating environment for government at the moment. However, the other aspect is we're trying to be the creative economy. We're trying to support the creative economy. And the reality is that when it comes to the media in Nigeria, it has been often very dominated by a very traditional set of media and a way of doing things around things like newspaper articles, around the same TV channels and the rest of it. And so we're actually trying to be much more innovative and trying to be different in the way that we're going to be approaching our media operations, which as a result, unfortunately, is going to mean that a lot of people who traditionally have been able to rely on the government, at least on the ministries, as a specific source of accessing types of work and funding, unless they're willing to sort of adjust with the way that media is being done nowadays. We recently saw the US presidential elections were being, the US primary campaigns were being launched on Twitter, for example, right? We're trying to meet people and creatives in the spaces that they actually exist. Now, in terms of what you were saying, in terms of how we're supporting media specifically, in terms of them as like a creative enterprise, then I can say, yes, there's a lot we're doing. So for example, we recently had, let's say, a social media manager or a media enterprise individual who was trying to break into the space. But as part of that, they have several people that they need to learn how to hire. They need to be able to hire an infographics person, a copy person, a sound designer. They need to be able to hire people that are going to be able to handle the data and confidentiality contracting. So what we're trying to do again with the CLAP platform is for new media people, for people who are trying to break into that space, we're going to provide them with the training they need so that they can actually know how to draft a contract, what the right stipulations of that contract are going to be, what the dangers that they're going to be facing, what are their regulatory requirements. So this is then going to mean that instead of the way that we normally do media in Nigeria, which is very just, the same newspapers, the same people being able to use institutional knowledge and an institutional advantage, we're going to democratize it, make it much more open and accessible so that more people can get engaged in the media space and be able to build careers off it.
Hi. Yeah, I know we've sort of overbeaten the question, but I'll add this, and just because I think it's very important to be very candid. Like Modibo mentioned, we've recognized that our media strategy haven't been the most ideal up until this point. However, in learning that lesson is one of the reasons why we are engaging on a platform such as this and intend to engage so much more on this front. And just to like I said, it's important to be candid. So I will mention that keep in mind that the traditional media outlets are one of the few people who are actually reaching out. I know you mentioned that you had reached out, but or maybe had not been able to gain access. I think one of the issues that we've had with media in recent time is the fact that everyone wants to get paid extra to do their job, which is a Nigerian thing. Like we always like to say, like a Nigerian thing, you want TV stations, radio stations to cover your event, you have to pay them to come there. but journalism is not supposed to be like that. Broadcasting and media is not meant to be like that. You're supposed to cover what is necessary, what is for the people, what you want people to know about, just as, as an outlet, as a media outlet. So I think this may be one of the issues that has led us to, sort of avoid certain, not avoid per se, but just not be able to engage with certain media outlets. However, like Modibo has mentioned, we are now taking a completely different tact. We want to be on Twitter Spaces, we want to be on YouTube, we want to be on platforms like this. We realize that so much more gets done in our space, in these spaces, and not, no one is watching our interviews on NT or AIT or any of these places. Unfortunately, I'm no disrespect to any media outlets. I'm just saying, we recognize that our constituents are in the other places, in the gray areas, and that's why we want to reach them through those areas. I would say that the person who raised this issue, you can reach out, and we will facilitate better access for you and people in your spaces and other media outlets who are not getting the access that they deserve or they require to be able to report on all of our activities better. And then as to Professor Silva's question, which earlier, which is basically, how can you benefit? And I will give a one-line answer: sign up on Clap. It's really that straightforward, and we can talk on and on and on, but how can you benefit? Sign up on Clap. Clap will give you access to and when you explore the website and you explore the application, you will understand why it's important to be a part of Clap. Just so you can you can now see the areas that affect you and the areas that don't. So sign up on Clap. That is the most straightforward answer to Professor Silva's question. I know that's one of the reasons that we're here. How can we benefit? And that's why we wanted to center the conversation around Clap, just because it's newly launched and we know not a lot of people know about it. But we are using this opportunity to tell you now, this is how you can benefit. Please come on board, come and join us, and let's take care of the issues that we've had previously. So yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. I hope that answers all the questions so far.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's another
Yeah.
hand.
Thank you.
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really.
No, Chinelo, wait. Let's take. So
Akani has not spoken.
yeah.
Okay. Hello. Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I hope my microphone is working fine.
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for having me here, and thank you to the speakers. This has been a really nice seminar. So far, from what I've heard, it seems like CLAP is like the solution to a lot of questions that people have and questions that I have myself. But I'm still a bit curious to gain a bit more context into what we can expect. One thing Mr. Baba mentioned earlier was the creative culture in Nigeria is what it is today in spite of the government. So my question now is, where can it go with government aid? You mentioned capacity building programs and creating infrastructure and policies. How exactly, it seems like CLAP, again, seems to be the solution, but how can we ensure that you can gather the voice of creatives to influence those policies? How accessible is the democracy? And yeah, what type of capacity building programs are going to be available? Generally, what can we expect from these infrastructures that you're putting in place? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know who will take that, Modibo or Roshan.
Imran?
Sure.
Imran, are you there? You're gonna go
I'm here. I'm here. So in terms of the types of trainings that will be offered on CLAP, when we said even no one left behind, we don't mean just the anyone from any part of the country. We also mean all types of creatives, all the subsectors of the creative industry. Like I said, from video gaming to culinary to digital media artists. Take for example, let's say you're a video game developer, where we've already looking to partner with companies such as the Unreal, makers of the that's Epic actually, makers of the Unreal Engine, to train people to develop capacity building programs for video games development. We've also partnered with Google. There's a photography class, so I think we should be on board. Madhouse, which has amazing creative network for people that are into photography. It's even though, and like I said, even though you could right now you can go and register as a partner, but that doesn't mean you'll just instantaneously be on club. There is a vetting process. For now, there is a vetting process, and we're looking when we standardize it properly, it would be the process will be more streamlined. But it's not we're looking for right now to have those big names that will locally and internationally. We're not trying to say, oh, we're only going for international names. No, we want the big names that understand the Nigerian market, that knows what it is to be a Nigerian a successful or hardworking Nigerian creative. So it's not for the types of trainings that we're bringing on board. It's robust, and it's not current. It's not just online. It's not just offline. Sorry, we're looking to put an online training for those that might not be able to travel, because also we've taken into consideration that some people might be, let's say somebody in Isialangwa or somebody in Kwantagora. It might be hard for them to start saying they're going to go and look for a training in a training that's taking place maybe in Lagos or in Kaduna. Traveling might be an issue for them. So CLAP is also looking to offer them that training platform that they don't need to go, they don't need to travel to complete it. And an LMS learning management system is being incorporated into the CLAP so that we can keep track of what these creatives are, what these artists, or let me say, what these I'll say students are actually doing. Like I said again, the origins platform is key to the success of CLAP, because we're looking at what people need and what people need, what they're actually completing. And actually, when you finish from CLAP, it's not that you're done with CLAP and that's all. We do follow up on all the participants on CLAP. We're measuring them during their training and after their training to see that actually have they implemented some of these capacity building workshops that they've been on.
So Imran, a very quick one on CLAP.
Yeah.
Who administered CLAP? The Federal Ministry, the National Council for Art and Culture? Because I did saw an information about CLAP being operated on behalf of the ministry by NCAC. Can you clarify that, please?
Yes, it's through the NCAC. The NCAC are the ones that are running CLAP. The ministry is running CLAP through the NCAC. Let me put it like that. And the NCAC, it's through a PPP. We decided that that's the best way to execute it in a manner that wouldn't let's say that we can trust will last for a long duration. We're not looking for CLAP to be a couple of years for one regime. We want CLAP to be around for the next 15 years or the next 20 years. We want
yes.
It's a long-term investment by the NCAC, by the ministry, and by this regime.
Yeah. So just to articulate that a little more, elaborate on that. Sorry. The NCAC will, like Imran mentioned earlier, has a couple hundred creative hubs, access to a couple hundred potential creative hubs across the country, which will now be used as training centers for CLAP, for on-site training. However, CLAP will still have off-site training through the software. Yes, the initiative was born of the ministry, but it has been set up as a PPP just to make sure that it's sustainable. If there's one thing that we can be honest about with government programs is a lack of sustainability beyond an administration and a lack of continuity. And our vision is to make sure that whatever we deliver during our time here is, especially for the Honorable Minister, it lasts beyond us. we needed to go to stay beyond our time in office. We're not doing it for ourselves or for the government. Yes, we do. It's actually for the people, and I know every politician says this, or every government entity will put it that way. But it is what it is. That's really what it is. We really want this to be beneficial to the creative economy beyond the time that we are in office, which is why we set it up as a PPP in collaboration with Premly. The NCAC will always be there, whether the ministry is scrapped or the ministry is, it stays long enough to keep going. The Council of Arts and Culture and its infrastructure, the creative hubs will always be there. The properties will always be there. We just need to maintain them. Yes, it's one of those situations where you give out something that may be more valuable to you. You love it, it's very precious to you, but you give it to someone else for the greater good, and that's what we've done with CLAP. It is owned by the ministry and NCAC and Premly, and we've set it up this way just because we're not concerned about who gets the glory, but more concerned about who gets the benefit from it long term. So I hope that answers the question as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I saw Green was up. All right, she's gone. So can we take
Mr.
Ima Silva's question?
Okay, thank you so much. I had some questions coming in while the session was on from some, private questions from some of the others in the industry. So one person asked, how do we, is there a way to check investor readiness for an individual or an institution in the industry? Is there a checklist? And then the second question was, if that is so, how can the individual or institution track their process through the CLAP system? I think that's what you're trying to say, CLAP system, to know, basically, I think what he's asked is why he or she was able to succeed. I mean, if he's successful, I mean, nobody would ask questions. If the person failed, the person wants to know why he or she failed to go through. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Just to say it, they're asking if they fail, whether they will get a response to why maybe they were not accepted onto the platform.
I think the person is trying to find out basically what it would take to be investment ready. That is one question. And the second thing is to be sure if the person is not successful, why the person was not successful. I think that's what the person is trying to find out.
Yeah, I just need a little clarification. Investment ready in what sense?
I think he's talking, Imran, I think he's about the funding components of CLAP and some of the other programs. So I think I'll just go ahead and answer the first part, and then Modibo
That's for
Imran can
in terms
answer.
of IDICE funding.
Yeah, in terms of IDICE funding, CLAP.
Yeah.
So with IDICE and CLAP, I think with IDICE, they're very clear that, like we said, we'll share some documentation that stipulates some of the clear requirements for the IDICE fund for being able to access that fund. We'll share some of that information, and that one is pretty clear and it's pretty straightforward. For CLAP funding, the funding is going to be particular, and correct me, Imran, if I'm wrong, but the funding is going to be directed at thematic areas. So, for example, if your training under CLAP is for film or as for visual arts, for example, as media, it's different partners funding different components, and with different partners, there are different requirements. There are people who have limits and who have special requirements. There are particular partners that want to fund specific type of entities. There's partners that want to that may want to fund, for example, women-owned enterprises. So it depends on the type of funding you are hoping to access. And that is, I think when you get to that stage, you would be able to identify what the requirements are for your type of enterprise. Yeah, so I think that question answers itself a little ways down the road. I can't speak to each of the particular funding requirements, but for IDAS, it's pretty clear and straightforward. So once you're able to read through, you look at the actual details of the documentation that we will share, you will have all of the information that you need, especially for IDAS. So I hope that answers that person's question. I don't know if Modibo or Imran wants to add anything.
Yeah, I'm glad that he's raised this question, because again, one of the things that we do really, really badly when it comes to making policy, doing programs, doing projects as a nation, is we don't do a good job of putting the user at the forefront of the way that we're trying to implement stuff. And so, case in point, you're right, that if you're somebody that's applying, it's not enough that you just get a rejection, which is traditionally what a lot of people face when they apply for funding. It will take ages, there's no way of tracking it, and there's no way of them to be able to fully understand and learn for the next time how to improve where they've missed out. And that honestly, again, with the challenges that we face, just completely destroys both the momentum that people have built up. So the first thing is that, again, this is something that we've put a lot of thought to in the way that we are creating the curriculum. And because we definitely recognize, I think the FMACCE and Trade report, I've forgotten the specific figures, has recognized that there's a huge funding gap for the sector. And the reason there's a funding gap is not necessarily because there's no funding available, but because the creatives don't have both by nature, because we all know creators, they're very they're creative, let's call them eccentric, right? They're not the kind of people who necessarily are going to lend themselves to sort of reading the fine print of regulatory work, but also because of the way that we treat people and customers. So the point I'm trying to make is that, yes, we will make sure that firstly, we have a course offering that actually provides training on accessing funding, in the same way that if you were a tech person, you were applying for, let's say, Series C funding, you would have entire Reddit forums that you could scroll through to be able to find out the information you need. And that will also have some level of base training that you can provide. Two, the cool thing that by doing this as the leveraging partner, is that we can, when we talk to the commercial entities and the other people that we're trying to get this funding from, we can stipulate that they need to both have a really clear and accessible type of funding criteria that they can put out, but that to some degree, where possible, that they also provide mechanisms to get feedback. And what that could also mean, and this is, again, I'm not trying to get too granular with it, but what that would also look like would probably be templates, examples of previous applications that have been successful, examples of applications that haven't been successful and why. These are small things, details, but that really make a difference to people's ability to make the most of a government program. So yes, we do. The point I want to make is that is something we're giving thought to. And just like with the language offering and the rest of it, we hope that this can, I know it's very ambitious, but I really hope that this can be a model for the way that we try to do government in Nigeria moving forward.
Okay, thank you. I can't see any more hands up.
Okay, so if there is no further
right.
question, I have a quick question of my own. And we were talking about the cultural policies earlier on, and 5 were mentioned, but 3, broken down. So my question, actually, considering the cultural policy, you mentioned about 3 of them: infrastructure, and what else? And of course, maybe this taxation stuff. But the question for me in the area of the cultural policies and funding issues is, in all of these new policies evolving, how well as existing policies, and I will mention one in particular, the National Endowment Fund for the Arts, which of course embodied some of the things you have raised here this evening, talking about tax, holiday for funders of creative endeavors. So how as these existing policies, which we have been toying with in the last 30 years, how did they, how much role did they play in this, or you are starting something completely new, and that is gone, with time? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Mr. Jerry. And I think it's just great that we have Baba here. We've had this conversation most recently as today. There's a lot of talk going on around that. So yes, Baba, I know you'll be very excited to answer this question. regarding
Hey,
the
sorry, Roshan,
endowment.
sorry, could you take that? I didn't catch the question. Oh, the
Yeah, sorry,
endowment for
Mr.
the
Jerry,
arts.
could you repeat the question? Yes,
Yeah. I was
Devin
just
just
asking
repeated the question.
about the policies you have informed us about, and I was asking how much you have given consideration, especially to the National Endowment Fund for the Arts, which I am aware has been in the mill for well over 30 decades. With all these beautiful propositions and the rest of them, it hasn't gotten the assent of government. So these new policies that you are brewing, how well is the National Endowment Fund, fair in it? Because I know that some of the things you have mentioned are in that endowment fund, which didn't get the light of day up till as we speak.
Okay, thank you, sir. On the endowment for the arts, so it's something we're looking at very critically and we're evaluating. We're trying to see how we can get that working the way it should. Now, like I said, there's a lot of conversations going on that I can't really say much until there's, let me say, definitive announcements that been authorized to go out. But so far, so good. We're threading in the right direction, but we identify the importance of having that for the space. And like you said, there are some things I mentioned, for instance, like the donations, the charitable donations being tax deductible. Yes, it's captured in the act. But the good thing is that what we're even proposing is not just strictly to the endowment fund, but any sort of non-governmental. So, but for us, we see it as pivotal because, as you rightly know, everybody always comes up to people talking about they need support for the arts, support for programs, and not everything in the arts and culture space is commercial by nature, but they need to happen because they have a societal benefit, they have a cultural benefit, and artistic benefit that eventually commercially would benefit from somehow, but it might not have the business case today. So we see that as a primary vehicle for allowing these things to happen. And for us, is how to activate, like, it was passed towards November 1991, never really activated, it's never really gotten funding, so we're doing a lot of stuff like looking at in the different bills and acts and laws, what are the legislative funding mechanisms that are already in there. What can we do? Because it's not enough for us to activate it, but how do we make sure that funding comes in? How do we make sure that the governance is correct and all this stuff? So there's a lot of reviews we're doing and looking at the structures, the framework, the laws, regulations. I'm sure you would find this actually quite funny that the youngest bill or law, so to speak, in our ministry, relatively from an agency standpoint, is 1993, which is NICO, and a lot of them are from the 70s. So we are looking at how can we bring this up to speed. So for instance, if you talk to the MD of National Film National Film Corporation, he will tell you that he's trying to move it to a commission, which is best practice, and we're trying to support him to do that. And all the DJs are working on their various bills and acts to update them. So I know NCC is also working to sort of refresh its act to make it more responsive. So I'm sure that when they do that, we'll see something concrete. I know obviously a little bit more than I can say. I just can't tell you what will happen, like I said, until certain approvals are done at the highest level. But there'll be something very good very soon. So yes, we have not forgotten it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we take Rosalind's question? I think we're running out of time already. Let's take question. Can you unmute yourself and ask question?
Yes, good evening, sir. Good evening. Yes, my question is that as a graduate of Terra Academy for the Arts, who has a startup film production business, what would be more appropriate for me to sign up on? Is it the creative, category or the business category on the club website? Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you for that question. I think this is one for Imran.
Well, you can sign up as a creative and you can sign up as a partner. If you feel you have something to offer, then you can sign up as a partner. And if you're looking for something to build on or learn, then you sign up as a creative. Signing up as a creative doesn't mean you can't sign up as a partner.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, please.
Thank you.
Business, not partner. Is it creative or business? Because actually I'm a creative, but I have my own personal business, Roslyn Justice Productions. So which do I sign up as? Thank you.
The business is similar to the partner. The business, CLAP has a marketplace that we're working on. So if you're looking to showcase your wares or your creative arts and you're looking to sell it, that is what the business is for. But the businesses and the partners are almost similar. It's just that for the business, you're looking to showcase or let's say showcase on the marketplace.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. That answered the question. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think just to add to that. So just to another differentiation, right? Partners are also providing some sort of value and benefit to other participants of CLAP. You maybe if you're able to train, if you already conduct trainings for people in your line of work or you're part of the arts, you're able to sign up as a partner, as well as if you're able to provide funding to other creatives, you're able to sign up as a partner. As a business, if you sign up as a business, you're basically looking to exploit the marketplace components. And then if you sign up as an individual, you're basically looking to benefit from the program and all of its partners. So I think that kind of classifies it pretty easily.
All right, thank you very much. Before I hand over to Jerry, our main moderator, I think we have spent quite a lot of time. I want to thank all the participants. I thank all the speakers. And maybe this question could maybe be addressed. The question I have could be addressed at our proposed stakeholders roundtable if we are invited. I think we had an express invitation. Okay, when that holds. I was looking at do we have does the policy have anything to protect investors? Maybe not to be answered now. Protection for investors in the sense that if investments are broken down into units and then people key into it like they do in retail, so that they can fund the creative infrastructure. Are there protection for them? And this is something I think we can take at maybe another roundtable. Thank you very much.
I can answer that very quickly for you. Due to time. I think is very to be honest, the policy is aimed more at protecting creatives than anyone else. I think investors and people who are more protected by the fiscal and financial policies that already exist and are constantly updated, because those are the ones that affect, the people, well, the big boys who have the pull and the influence, if you know what I mean. And we that are overlooked is we're focusing this policy on protecting the creatives. So I think I hope that answers your question. But I understand that for example, with investors, they're already sort of protected by some of our country's fiscal policies, which I know Baba is a little more familiar with, but they've always been protected and maybe a little too protected. And right now it's time for the little guy to, have some protection of our own as well. If you, I hope, I think you would agree with me.
Sure. All right, thank you, Modibo, and thank you, Mr. Owecho. Of course, I mean, our time is far spent. This was meant to be a 90-minute, maximum 120 minutes meeting, and we are just 6 minutes to achieving that because we actually started at 8:10. Okay, so I'm going to, earlier on, Roshan mentioned Professor E.S. Dandaura. So you also have a comment to make, and so I'm going to yield the mic to Professor Dandaura to do a 2 minutes max. I know it's difficult, but Prof, if you are still there, 2 minutes, and then we can use the remaining 3 minutes to wind down. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jerry, and thank you, my dear friends, for the brilliant presentation. They were all illuminating. I believe that for the first time, probably we have people who have an idea of what to do and are willing to learn more to improve upon what they know. So I like the vibes that I get, but I must advise that It's important for us not to reinvent the wheel. It's also important for us to understand that if you run too fast, leaving your stakeholders behind, you might run into bigger problems. It's also very important to say there is no data, no authoritative data at the moment in our sector that I can work with. I stand to be corrected. So far, there's been only 2 studies, attempts at 2 studies. The last one being, there is agglomera, which of course we didn't have control over. There's also the British Council funded one we did in 2013, which of course had Bureau of Statistics and most stakeholders there. We did a pilot. We have an instrument that we were supposed to engage and see how we can do countrywide. So that when you're talking about clusters, you know where they're located, you know what clusters are there and all. So all these you're talking about, we really cannot get very far without data. I hear you when you say you are generating data, but we need a comprehensive mapping of the sector. And that is one of the first things to do. And talking about not reinventing the wheel, I think it's important we appreciate, like I did mention to you when I came, we appreciate that a lot of work had been done already in some of these aspects. So leveraging that will help us to move faster. So we don't have to reinvent everything. If you take, for instance, the AU Plan of Action on Cultural and Creative Industries, it identifies 9 thematic areas, you know, and it would be nice for you to see, because most of what we are seeing as new initiatives are already contained in there. What member states do is to pick from there and run with it. From my engagement with you, I realized there was no much engagement with the AU, and I've engaged both the commissioner and the director of culture. They are willing to release the documents to you whenever you are willing to have that, so that we factor them in. It can also reduce some of the areas we are going to spend time to begin to look for information on. It's also important for us to understand that in-house here, for both practitioners and academics, we have a lot of people that have developed capacities. Let's understand that when you're designing a project, you don't carry the stakeholders along from day one. You're likely going to have problems, especially that we're coming at a time where there's a lot of suspicion on government. Generally, globally, of course, there is very low trust in government. But we're coming at a time where we even have worse of it here in our client. You talked about endowment, for instance. We've been on this for many years. The last government constituted a committee on endowment. That was a member. We were never inaugurated for 2 years until the end of that, whatever. So I think what you need is strategic plan in terms of communication. You need strategic engagement. You cannot go far selling your message yourself. You need third-party endorsement, and that's why this platform is a good one. At least it has kickstarted the discussion, but it's very important that you do a lot of stakeholder engagement. It's very important for us to address the issue of data. It's also very important. Take, for instance, you can talk about IP policy or law. The major challenge African countries have is the issue of IP bank. All the IP banks are not African. And I'm happy that AfrExim has started some work in that regard, and we have some progress. I'm also happy that the ministry, as it is now with the minister, you're open to new ideas. And so we encourage you. I'm also happy that as the windows open, you take advantage of them. At the moment, we're working with AfrExim back to have Canex weekend in October. And I'm happy when we had the review meeting today, our minister is one of the ministers in the continent that has a confirmed attendance. You should encourage her to be there. There are lots of opportunities we can take advantage of. But most importantly, also looking was among the professionals, there's a lot of resource that can help you to ensure that you're driving with maximum speed without having your own stakeholders not understanding you. And I can tell you that your greatest obstacle will even be those in the public service, your parastatals. So there's a lot of work that you need to do in that regard. So thank you so much. There's a lot more to say, but I actually chose not to speak. I wanted to listen, and I've enjoyed your ideas. I enjoyed your clap and all that. And I pray that we will correct this mistake of not taking advantage of those available resources, in the sector. As I off my mic, I give you one example. Nigeria was negotiating to sign an agreement with US in the area of some aspect of AGOA. We had a lot of resource here. Nigeria, which was at that time led by NCCM, never thought they should consult in. The US had to hire me as their consultant to negotiate with Nigeria. So those are some of the funny things we have in the sector. Even these are practitioners you see. Some of them teach in universities abroad. That's what I tell my colleagues in the universities. They have the knowledge that is useful. So let's try to map what is also available inside so that they will be the best people to sell these beautiful programs you have. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you, Prof. I know that 2 minutes can never be enough, but then we just have to call it a day. And so I'd like to very quickly invite Mr. Imali Silva back for a closing shot in terms of vote of thanks, and then we'll set a date like we have all agreed. This would have to continue, and of course, this engagement will continue. Mr. Iva, you have the floor, please.
Prof, thank you so much for the words of wisdom you shared, and truly appreciate you. And we would also look to you for to help us to set up better feedback loops so that the government officials can have information on the progress of their initiatives amongst the actual body of creatives. And I want to again thank our representatives from government for taking time out. You've spent quite a bit of time with us. So we also have a responsibility to see how the time you invested is also, you're able to get some good returns on the investment. We will go back and find out what we need to do. We will have, we're also, willing to work with leaders of other communities like this so that even if you're giving information, they can be, most people don't, even if you had a site for the federal ministry, most people would not check it, but they're more connected to some of these organic groups that have, come together. And we communicate every day, we discuss every day. So please try and take advantage of them. We don't mind working with leaders of other groups. And Mr. Jerry, Mr. Mach, if you can also please give us leadership to have some sort of a committee that will be basically helping with the public engagement, not public this time. I mean, the creative engagement of the creatives. This morning, I was in an online meeting with some of the researchers on the creative economy, and one of the issues was even the data they're using to come up with decisions. The tertiary data is supposed to have come from primary data, which process should become secondary data, and then but you access tertiary data in major global platforms about Nigeria when we don't really have the primary data, and that is where a lot of issues are. So I wouldn't want to take too much of our time. I want to also thank all the participants who made our time today. We are just few compared to the much larger number we have. So please be part of this community that we come from. And if you belong to another community, encourage your leaders to connect with us. We would love to see how we could work together with you and be able to continue to engage the government, and they will also be able to get a feedback. I wouldn't want to say more. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Imal. And I mean, we cannot say thank you enough to, of course, all our speakers from the ministry. And I mean, for me, it's just about setting the next dates. Maybe not so soon, but I mean, there will be need to continue to engage. Some more questions from other platform I have just posted, and I can see that Mr. Roshan is responding to those questions, so which is very critical. Thank you so very much for your time, everyone. And when next we have the next session, we definitely will keep you informed. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for having us.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Well done, Jerry and Owecho.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof.
Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your.
Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Lazzi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Auntie Shai, thank you. Living Green, thank you. Anekan Nenti. Babagba Akaniene Udo. Malibo, as we also thank you. Madam Deja Abdullahi, thank you very much. Yemi Davis, Adebiyi, Adeboyejo, we thank you so very much. Of course, Adetola Ivofe, thank you, and for the poetry as well. Good night, everyone. See you some other time. Femi Adedino, good night.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good
Babagba, see you some
Thank you,
other
sir.
times.
No worries.
Good
Look
night.
forward to the next one.
Sure. You're welcome.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Stay safe.